Welcome back to Extreme Homes. Next, we'll visit a home in Marshall, Colorado, a ghost of a town near Boulder that was once a booming mining community. We'll be talking to Mozer, a computer science professor who's not quite sure what spurred him into buying a house here or anywhere in the first place.
There are all sorts of cool snakes around here.
I was living in a perfect little one-room apartment right next to the university. Just walk out my door and I was right at work. And I don't really know what possessed me to go looking for a house, but one thing led to another, and when I decided I was going to buy my own space, I decided I may as well find a space that's far away from everyone. This area is just about 5 minutes to town, but it has this nice rural feel to it. I drove around this area a lot looking for places a little bit outside the city, and one day this schoolhouse was for sale. It was a 3-room schoolhouse for the town of Marshall up until the late 50s. There were about 50 students altogether, went up through grades 9. It was a nifty old building. It's kind of spooky. You walked in the place and kind of felt the spirits of all these kids who'd been through the building.
Built in 1905 and virtually untouched since the late 1950s, the structure was a mess.
The siding was warped and cracked. The windows were mostly smashed out. The roof had holes in it. The foundation itself was in a bad state from water running off from the hillside above the house. And as a result, some of the floor joists were actually sitting under a foot or two of dirt and rotting. Part of what made it a neat building is the fact that it was a schoolhouse and it had this history. And the more I found out about the history of the building, a lot of that I found out from neighbors who went to school here who still live in the area. I became more interested in the structure and wanted to preserve its original appearance and bring it back to its original appearance. New foundation had to be built. The building was cut in half and moved onto the new foundation. The original structure was right here and it's moved about 80 feet to the west. The roof was replaced. The windows were replaced. The siding was torn off and replaced with similar thin slatted clapboard siding. And the whole interior was pretty much gutted down to the framing and redone. A lot of the architectural details remain. For example, under the eaves of the roof flares out and there's some neat woodwork. And the siding itself is similar to the original. The bell tower is actually a reconstruction of the original bell tower. The exterior today looks pretty much as it did in the 50s when it was a schoolhouse.
But to get it to that point took a lot more than Mike had expected.
I was very naive about what would be involved in the renovation. I thought I'd just go to the bank and get a barrel full of money and give it to some guy who drove a pickup truck, and 3 months later I'd have a cool place to live. And it turned out to be 2 years of hell, and I was spending 4 or 5 hours a day over here, and when I ran out of money I was doing a lot of the work myself. Because of the renovations I wasn't getting any research done, and it was a frustrating experience, and I thought to myself, if there's only some way to combine my research interest in computer systems that learn from experience with renovating my house, then I can justify all the time I've sunk into the house renovations.
When the house was almost finished, Michael stumbled onto an ingenious way to make his home part of his research work and give it a mind of its own. When we come back, we'll find out all about it. Welcome back to Extreme Homes. We're about to find out how Mike Mozer turned his 1905 Colorado schoolhouse renovation into an extremely interesting research project, one that could keep him busy well into the 21st century.
I was spending so much time on the house remodeling project that I wasn't getting my research done, my research in machine learning systems, computer systems that learn from experience.
Welcome. It's 5:19 p.m.
And I'd go off to conferences in my field and people would say, "What are you up to?" And I was embarrassed not having anything to report. So I'd say, "Well, I'm building a neural network house." A neural network is a type of computer system that learns. And it started off really as a gag, and before I knew it, strangers were coming up to me at meetings saying, "I heard about your neural net house, that sounds like a really interesting project." What would a neural net house do? What should a house learn if it's going to learn? What would it take to equip this house with the right sort of sensors and controls? And before we knew it, we had a full-blown research project. This is actually a government-funded research project, and I've had 15 students working on this over the years, students from electrical engineering and computer science and mechanical engineering. And we ran 5 miles of conductor in the house for the sensors and the actuators before the walls were put up. And the students built the hardware that you'll see around the house for all the sensors, and the students and I wrote the software that controls the computer system, that reads the sensor data, that controls the various devices in the house, but also that does the learning.
It's definitely not your ordinary smart house.
More commonly, owners pay someone to program the house for them or bring in a technician of some sort who sets up the system. For example, so you push one button on your wall and a whole pattern of lights go on, but you specify in advance what patterns you want, the romance mood or the prepare dinner mood. And this system's a lot more flexible in that it watches you move around the house and tries to infer from your patterns of motion and the patterns of sound in the house what you're doing, and from that to predict what sort of lighting you'd like. So if I go over to the television set and turn on the TV set, it hears the sound from the TV. The motion detector that looks out over the television set sees that I'm in that region of the house, and it knows that it should turn off the wall sconces behind the television. It knows that not because I programmed it, but because in the past when I've gone over and turned on the TV and been in that part of the room, I've turned off the lights myself, and so it predicts what I'm going to do. It anticipates what I'm going to do and turns off the lights. The computer system in the house controls the lighting, the air temperature, the water temperature, and the ventilation. And all those systems in the house are connected to the computer, so the computer can turn on and off the furnace and turn on and off fans. The system isn't just trying to make me comfortable, it's also trying to save energy. This shows the status of the house, of all the sensors and the controls, the actuators. Each of these yellow bars shows the sensed light level at a particular point in the house. You can see this bedroom, the light level is darker than, say, in the room we're in right now, in the great room. This red line shows the current temperature, and if I click on that location, it will tell me numerically that it's 89 degrees there. That's why the fan's running. In the north end of the house, it's probably a little cooler. It says 79 degrees. So I can just type manually set level of the great room south fan to 15, and it will go on. Oh, there, that one worked. This graph shows, as the system gains more experience watching me in the house, how it performs. You can see here this yellow curve, which shows one aspect of performance is steadily increasing over time, even though at this point it has 100,000 experiences it's gained over several years.
To do its job, there are 75 sensors that monitor motion, temperature, light, and sound, both inside and outside the house.
This is a photovoltaic sensor. It measures the light level outside, and the wire feeds into the computer system. In addition, you might think of all the light switches and the thermostats in the house as sensors, because they're feeding a signal to the computer anytime I adjust a light or a fan or the furnace.
From the inside, it's hard to tell this was ever a schoolhouse. Mike's collections, though, toys, glow-in-the-dark things, and gargoyles, do suggest a kindred spirit to the children who once occupied this space. And while the blackboards and desks are gone, here and there in this 3,400 square foot home, there's still some evidence of the building's past. Mike's bedroom, for example, was the classroom for 7th and 8th graders, and its original fir floors still bear the marks where the desks were once attached.
And there's also a trapdoor where the kids used to stuff papers down that they didn't want to take home to their parents in my bedroom.
And some of the home's bathrooms are virtually unchanged from their schoolhouse days, except perhaps for the sensors that turn the lights on and off.
One thing I like about working on this project here is that this is a schoolhouse where children used to come and learn, and now the schoolhouse itself learns.
Naturally, just like a school child, sometimes the house's systems don't exactly cooperate with the teacher.
Every once in a while something goes wrong at 3 in the morning and the system starts making announcements, and those are the times I wish I didn't live here. I wish I could just terminate the experiment. But most of the time there's some sort of security knowing that the system is watching you and making decisions several times a second to make you comfortable. And when we shut off the system to install a new version of the software and the house is all turned off and acts like a normal dumb house, you feel like something's missing and you've kind of lost a friend that was with you and taking care of you. On the other hand, sometimes it gets kind of frustrating. You walk in a room and turn on a light and it turns it right back off.
Will it ever learn? I hope you enjoyed the houses we visited today in Extreme Homes. They're prime examples of the ingenuity and inventiveness of people all across the United States. People who say that home is not only where the heart is, it's where whimsy and wonder and sometimes wackiness reside too. Join us next time on Extreme Homes, where the only thing you can expect is the unexpected.